Are we live yet? Wow, that took forever. What's happening, everybody? I hope everybody is having a fantastic whatever day it is that you're watching this. So, guys, I was kicking it on the gram today, and something had popped up. It was the Dodge official Instagram thing. And what's the thumbnail? What are they telling us about in this Dodge official? Well, it was the Demon 170, a really pretty white one. Matter of fact, a car that looks identical to the car that I would have spec'd. But this is what I want to illustrate for you guys. It's Dodge official. They're showing us the Demon with the 170 with no real context to it. I mean, it is May the 4th, right? So May the 4th be with you. Is that maybe what was going on with that? Here's the problem. They're focusing on Vader, need to be looking at Luke. That whatever it is, the Charger all-wheel drive contraption thing, where's the marketing for that car? Where's the marketing for that thing that we were promised was going to take the place of all of these Hemis that they keep shoving down our throats? Not to mention the fact that they're going to cram that Demon down our throat. It's a done deal. You might as well have been showing us something from the 60s or 70s. What's the difference? That car is done. All of them are sold, presumably, even if you are the dealership that bought them, the assholes that they are that they did. But now this is what we're looking at. We're looking at what? You're going to throw that thing at us? We're going to throw that car down our throat? Here's the other funny thing. So, yeah, it was Dodge official. So I don't really want to bring anybody else into the fight. But what about Ram? You know, the 2025 Hurricane 6 trucks are just now making it to dealerships near you. Have you driven one yet? Did you even know that they were there? No, you probably haven't on both counts. And the reason why is because you weren't told about it. You're not being told that this stuff exists. Meanwhile, you've got the Hornet, which is not setting any sales records anytime soon. Matter of fact, those things have a nasty habit of having over 300 days on the lot. Not 100, 300 days on the lot for a lot of those cars, probably for the vast majority of them. So I'm left a little bit confused. Dodge, why are you showing me vehicles that are out of production that nobody is going to be able to buy anyway, that your dealers were fleecing your customers for, that long-term legacy customers were disallowed to have access to? You're going to do that as opposed to bringing the new car to light, to have a little bit more action in this thing. I mean, it is May the 4th. It is Cinco de Mayo Eve. You know, can you stop showing me stuff from like V8'sville? I mean, I know that the V8s are made in Mexico, so maybe there's something along that line, but damn, this is getting tiring. Why is it that now Dodge is going to hang their marketing hats on what is in essence an obsolete combination? Again, I'm wondering, it's like stamp collecting. Like at this stage of the game, why even stop at the Dodge Demon 170? You should have gone back to something kind of cool. Like, I don't know, the horse and buggy or something. Whatever Dodge got started with, because again, I have to say it carries the exact same amount of relevance. The horse is an outdated power plant, just like the V8, by at least what we would be told is smarter knowledge, an outdated power plant. So what gives? Anyway, let me check in with you guys. Nitro crew, got the K Flex with the ball guy with the shades. I like it. Ryan is in. Sovereign is in. Skids, what's up, my man? David Barlow. Skids, look at all the flexing. Marco Mui ties in with the gloves. I like it. Sovereign's early in. I like it. Noab is in. What's up, man? Skid saying the new Rams have popped up in the ads. That's good. I would love to see them on my end as well. Mark, I was saying, should have made a Ram 1500 SRT. I've been saying that from early jump. There's no reason in the world why the truck shouldn't have had a 392 option. Skids, may the fourth be with you all, nerds. Absolutely. Dodge started with bicycles. Yeah. I mean, why not throw a bicycle on there? They used to, the Dodge brothers worked for Ford. I mean, put a Model T. Skid saying happy Cinco de Mayo to everyone as well, of course. Feliz de Cinco de Mayo. BB saying in for a good rating tonight. Ranting tonight, yes. No, I have said I just saw my first Hornet RT on the streets. It was an older couple. It was probably a loaner. So getting back to it, guys, I'm still trying to figure this out. I'm trying to wrap my head around it, trying to make some sense of it so that I can at least walk tall knowing that I have been supporting Mopar for as long as I have. But again, the buffoons over at Dodge Marketing cannot seem to ever get it right. They can't seem to see the forest for the trees. It's not that difficult. In fact, everything that Dodge would need to do to be successful, it's a layup. This story writes itself. And to have anything to do with Dodge and Ram marketing would be probably the easiest marketing gig that you could get. About the toughest thing that it would be to be in those positions would be to sit through the pitches of the commercials. That's it. Wasting people's time with outdated or out of production cars for your social media is, I'm going to say it's insulting, but it's insulting to the people that are true diehard fans. Like what it is it's pandering to the lowest IQ denominator in this. That is exactly what it is. Bread and circus. That's all they're doing. They're doing everything that they can to try to keep some kind of a brand excitement going. But the problem is that if you keep hearkening back to this outdated, and by the way, not a good look right now for the Demon 170. So let me stop that rant and kick this one off. What's the body count up to right now, boys? It's at 11 lost souls so far. Is that what it is? 11 of our demons are dead. Engines blown for whatever reasons. And in some cases, there's multiple reasons. Why? What? How is this even a thing? And by the way, they're not blowing up like blowing head gaskets. These things are eating themselves alive. That's not we're making too much power. That's something is fricked up in the oiling system, and there are other systems as well that are failing. I'm just going to say this. Guys, this does not happen in the aftermarket. It just doesn't. And this does not happen when you use stock Demon short blocks. It just doesn't really happen. There's plenty of 1,000 horsepower, 1,100 horsepower stock block Hellcats. In some cases, stock supercharger Hellcats that are running around. Well, why are they letting go? How is it that the Demon is letting go? Is it coming off the trans brake too hard? Is it evacuating the sump because of that? Is it overfilled, underfilled oil? What in the world is causing all of these problems? And it's interesting that this car is failing in not the same way at all, but the original Demon. Remember that car, the OG Demon? When I was running high nines with the Demon that we had, I was foot braking that car. I never once touched the trans brake in that thing. Not one time. I didn't see a need for it. I never tried to put it into torque reserve. And by the way, I was running high nines with it in shit air. All right. So I was running high nines with that car. It was kind of crappy air, and I was foot braking it. But guys that were running it off of the trans brake were fragging rear differentials. All right. So there's that. This trans brake thing doesn't seem to be playing too well. And what I'm saying here is trans brake is nice if you have a car that is soft to hit. If you've got a turbo car with a turbo timer, which is in this case to say that it's a stepped boost based on time, or you've got a centrifugal supercharged car, or you're running a nitrous car with staged kits. Trans brakes are great. The problem by putting a trans brake on a positive displacement supercharged vehicle is that I don't care if you're talking about torque reserve or not. The whole point, the entire point of a positive displacement supercharger is when the pedal goes down, the bypass immediately shuts, and you are getting all the boost that compressor can generate right now, which is to say you get all of the torque that it can generate right now, which is to say that if you step that and you hit it with a two-step, you are hitting that thing with a two-step at peak torque, which in some cases is fine. But when you've got a car as heavy as these are, you're getting like high 120, low 130, 60 foots out of these things. I can only imagine the loads that are going through that chassis, and there's nothing that is going to survive that long term unless it is way over engineered. Luckily, the Dodges are, but I got to tell you guys, man, the OG Demon, didn't really like that trans brake thing. Maybe the quicker cars were running on the trans brake, and maybe it made a difference. But for the layman, for the guy that's just going out there and running numbers, don't know that it really would have made a difference. And especially when you start taking track prep into account. So, there's a lot of stuff going on with these cars, and it's not painting the car in general in a very flattering light. Is that the best way to put it? OC had a good point in one of his videos. You got a lot of these guys. If there is something inherently wrong with the car, if guys are buying that car and they're putting it in some kind of hermetically sealed, HEPA filtered bubble, and you never see the car see the light of day, especially in anger, well, is that a ticking time bomb if we're talking about parts failure? Here's the other thing. How many of those cars that are going to be hermetically sealed are going to be hermetically sealed with E85 still in the tank? Nobody's talking about that one. And here's the problem. E85 over time is going to start to corrode everything that it's touching. All right. Now, it's bad enough that gasoline does this. Anytime that you're going to be storing a vehicle, your best bet is to evacuate the tank altogether, especially if it's going into a bubble. But how many of these guys are really going to do that? If you're going to have any fuel in it whatsoever, it has to be ethanol free. But even then, you shouldn't have any if the fuel's going to sit for more than, say, a year. So, again, I'm kind of lost over here. Are we looking at a problem with these cars? And here's the other thing. What happens if, like, say, in 3 years, somebody decides to sell one of these hermetically sealed cars and it's only got 8 miles on it? And let's say the guy just gets his money back out of it. Will the new buyer feel all that great about buying that car? Or what kind of bath will the owner have to take to get rid of it? It's another question. When you consider that it will be out of warranty. Statute of limitations ran out on your warranty, new buyer guy. And now there's no recourse if something catastrophic goes wrong with it. Oh, this isn't good. And so I think what we're looking at is just the tip of the proverbial iceberg. I think what we're going to be seeing is we're going to be seeing a lot of demons start to fail. And when I say a lot, what's an acceptable amount? 8%, 5%? What's the number that's going to freak you out? There's 3,500 cars sold. Is, I don't know, 200 of them failing in some way a big deal? I'd say, yeah, that's a pretty damn big deal if you ask me. So anyway, let me keep checking in with you guys. He's going to say, dude, I got in a 200-mile round trip DFW ride today, escorted by TSP. It was cool as hell. Then the fish fry up at Texoma at the end of the ride. Dang, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I was on, let's see, I was on the Daytona, the T-Bird, and the Cowie today. Keeping those things exercised. DM is in. What's up, man? Let's see. Skid's asking, weren't there a few 69 Copos with the famed aluminum 427 that never saw the light of day? Those kind of came out in the, there were, but God, those are the L88 cars. Yeah, they did that. I mean, and the thing is that those cars had a really big push in like the early to mid 90s. So most of those cars got bought and nobody really, you don't really see them come up too often anymore. And a lot of people, the reason for that is a lot of folks just don't know what they are. It's a niche market, and the people that are into that are kind of checking out at this point. Skid's not sure if OC got rid of his 170. If he's floating around in here, he'll let us know. Sovereign saying he still has it. Yeah. So anyway, can it be something in the factory tune causing the failure? Very doubtful. Very, very, very doubtful. There's nothing in that tune that would cause it to fail the way that they're failing. So, you know, and the factory tune's doing all that it can to hold that car together. So not that, let me rephrase that. When it goes into low oil pressure mode, it goes into a full on limp mode. But anyway, and I haven't posted up. I need to do the filming of the E85 protocol. That'll be coming up, I guess, this week. I've been focusing a lot on the bikes lately. Was able to get the Daytona out for a little bit. Took the T-Bird out and then took the Cowie out. I had to do a bit of I was trying to get my head, like, this is kind of a weird thing. I was trying to get my head wrapped around the difference between the Daytona and the Z900 RS. And it's kind of weird. The Daytona, there's times where the Daytona legit, but the Kawasaki feels like it accelerates to, say, 120, maybe 130, a little bit quicker than the Daytona, but maybe to 100. But the Daytona will roll to 140 or so, seemingly maybe a bit more effortlessly, assuming that the speedometer is correct. But the Daytona is so much smoother than the Kawasaki, or the Kawasaki, because of gearing, even with that 16.2 front sprocket, is just, it's just always kind of pissy. It's buzzy because it's a 4-cylinder too. But either way, I was having a lot of fun with it. But so I'm on the Daytona. Y'all, the guys with bikes will love this. So I'm on the Daytona. The Daytona is a 98 T595. It's a 955 cc triple. It's pretty stout for what it is. It's just shy of OG R1 fast, right? So it runs pretty good. But I don't really hammer on that bike so much. Getting parts for it is becoming more and more difficult. If anything happens to that bike, I don't really have, I can't just roll out and get new fairings or new parts or whatever. It runs amazingly, though. I mean, it'll absolutely get it. In fact, I was cruising at around 120 to 130 today with that bike. So at least that's what it was indicating. So, I mean, it was humming along really well. So I get off of that bike. I'm not super aggressive with the Daytona. I'll hit long sweepers with it. And what I'll do is I'll set the bike up in a long sweeper, and I'll just roll into the throttle as I'm coming into the apex. And then I'll make sure that it's pinned as I'm hitting the apex and then exiting with it. So I'm not really, I mean, I might exit at maybe a buck 40 at the most. I'm not anywhere near like the 150, 160 that I would do on a leader bike. In those types of sweepers. Because the bike doesn't have the power to do it, and which is good. It's really smooth and it's got a lot of torque. So the Cowie, on the other hand, I'm not really missing a gear. It's a 5-speed plus overdrive, which makes it a 6-speed as opposed to a true like close ratio 6-speed. Which is to say that even with the 16-tooth front sprocket, which is up a tooth from the 15, it still does not have the legs that the Daytona does. First, second, and third gear. So that's part of the reason why it feels like it's stronger in some areas, but then it doesn't feel quite as strong in like fourth and fifth gear, where the Daytona just really does some good work. But anyway, I wanted to get them both out. And in between, I rode my T-Bird, which is a cruiser. It's not a sport bike variant at all. But here's the problem with the T-Bird. You can lean the T-Bird over and roll into the throttle the same way that you do with a sport bike. The problem is you start grinding the pegs. And so I kept catching. So what I'll do with that bike is I ride on the balls of my feet. It's got more forward, not forward controls, but it's got the like typical cruiser up front controls. And I ride on the balls of my feet, and I use my heels as you would use your knee. If you're dragging a knee, I use my heels for that. And I know that when I start getting it over enough to start dragging my heels, that I'll start to, just roll out of the throttle a little bit on corners. Well, the problem is I was coming off the Daytona, which is infatuated with high-speed sweepers. And so I would find myself on this 700-pound cruiser, and I did it twice pretty good, where I was grinding the left-hand peg on some of my favorite sweepers. So anyway, get onto the Kawasaki after that, and the only thing about the Kawasaki now to me, if I had any kind of, it's not the bike's fault. It's not a negative on the bike. It just, I'm kind of used to it, and I'm finding myself, especially in any kind of long sweeper, I'm just pinned with that bike. So, it's got the right amount of power now. It's got just like the base amount of power to keep me interested in that bike. But really, I say that 16-tooth front sprocket, if it even had stock power, that 16-tooth front sprocket helped it a ton. But anyway, that's kind of where I was today with the bikes, just having some fun. I'm waiting to get a bikini, like a small little different. I'll say a bikini fairing. It's not even that. It's just a little bit different fairing for the Bonneville. Cartesian, what up, Mr. Mason? Cart, the chats are typically Tuesdays and Saturdays. So Tuesdays, usually between 8:30 and 9:30 I go on. Saturdays could be anywhere between 9 and 10 is when they will kick off. I used to do a 2-hour show. Sometimes it'd even go over that. Typically now the shows won't go over. I typically don't let them go too far over an hour anymore. Let's see. But anyway, that's what I was up to. I was also playing around with different helmets and earplugs. So there's two. If you guys aren't into bikes, if you do own a motorcycle, one of the most important things that you can wear are these earplugs. It's not because of the noise of the exhaust. It's because of the wind noise, and prolonged wind noise will jack your ears up pretty good. And most people at some point in their life will develop a mild ringing. I've always had ringing in my ears, especially my right ear since I was a little kid. So to me, I don't really even notice it, but some people, it bothers them. I do this because it helps me to concentrate a little bit more because I'm not getting so much buffeting. But these are only the kind with the little silicone. These are really only good up to about maybe a 26 decibel reduction, where the foam kind that you roll and put in your ear and let it expand, those are good to about 30-ish, like 30, 31. That is a major difference, one to the next. But always recommend get your ears in, and your hearing will help. Will thank you. It'll help you in the long run. Break Stuff's in. What vintage bike is at the top of your bucket list? Mine's an 83 1100 Katana. Very cool bike, with some minor period correct mods. Maybe some internal engine work and an undercut trans. I'll tell you what. Suzuki GS 1100 is near the top. GPZ 1000 is also at the top of that list. William, thank you very much, man. Thank you very much. Saying Demon 170 was targeted to those who can afford it, but not necessarily ones who know how to drive a trans brake and the horsepower and torque. And that's very true. I'll take that even a step further. The problem with the Demon 170 is that it was put out into the world as kind of a clout chasing type of a product, but it was never intended, I don't think. I don't know if they ever wanted it to truly get into the hands of people that would race it and take it to the track. I think that it was made for, it was made as a flex. And I think that, look, if the technology, here's where I'm at with that. If the technology would waterfall to existing Hellcat owners, to existing, the Hurricane 6 power plant vehicle owners, whether it's the truck, the new Charger, or whatever, then I will for sure be on board with that. So if this is a way to fund that technology, you got me. 2 thumbs up, 100%, stand behind you. I'll even help push. But the problem that I have with that is that that's not what we're seeing. We don't see the trucks being flex fuel compatible. We don't see the Grand Wagoneers being flex fuel compatible. And even if it's only the HO variant, we've got to see an HO variant with corn compatibility. Without it, guys, I'll put it to you like this. Without it, that setup makes no sense. You can't tell me, okay, first of all, the Coyote truck is flex fuel compatible, but the car's not. That's still weird to me. Look, it's not just a Dodge thing, okay? I love that my truck is flex fuel compatible because it adds this fun little element to it. I can't really put it into words, but you know it's like, okay, we're going to go have some fun with this thing. Not that it's not already fun already. But the thing is that I don't get the sense that Dodge is going to do anything with the technology. And it's because of that I find it's just a bit of a waste. To get to my point, the Hurricane 6 needs corn, man. Listen, if any engine would pick up like sizable chunks, not just like a 10% bump, which I'm convinced that the Coyote gets, by the way. I'm talking about like a 20% bump in power. That's what you would see if you were to, and I kid you not, if you were to put this HO on corn, you would probably see a significant jump in power out of that thing. Same for the standard output, just because of the amount of boost that thing is running. It can definitely use the added octane and the oxygenation of the E85. But thank you very, very much. I appreciate that, bud. But yeah, brake stuff. Those would be my two. I like the 83 1100 Katana a lot. But those would kind of be on my bucket list. I would also add to that maybe God, there's a few. Those would be the first two. God, that's really about it. Nothing really from anywhere else. I mean, of course, I don't know that I can't say any of the Triumphs though, even though I'm a big Triumph. Obviously, I'm a big Triumph guy. I've got the Bonneville now, which is better than anything that they would have had back then. It's in essence the same chassis design, so to speak. So, but those would be the two right off of the bat that I would say I would want. I'm sure some others will come to mind later. So I'm saying I get random ringing from time to time. That's probably from cranking up rock music past 11 on the dial, for sure. And I own a last call TA 392 M6, fun car. It's a very good car. Saying he loves it, I would too. BB saying, for being, as everyone is saying, a dedicated drag car, it seems odd to have all the electric bells and whistles. Ain't that the truth? And here's the other funny thing. So a lot of folks, I think, are finding out pretty quickly that drag strip prep cars don't do so hot on the street. And just because it goes really fast on a drag strip, that doesn't translate to street performance. I'm sure it's a comfy, fun, nice car to take for a ride, but you put that thing on the street, and the first, second, and fifth Mustang with a supercharger is going to come out of the woodwork looking for it. Oh, DM saying 100% the earplugs really help. I went to an audiologist, had injected ones made. They work great. Yeah. If you're, you know what? I never needed them, the Hellcat, but I used to also wear earplugs with the Vipers, and I would wear earplugs when I did the autocross stuff. It helps you to concentrate. You don't have you ever, like, you turn down the radio to try to look at something. It kind of has that same effect. It helps you concentrate a little bit better. You can still hear everything just fine. It just takes it down a notch. I'm saying the Demon 170 was a good going away last call. It's a great car. Here's the problem with the Demon 170. This is something that you'll never hear me. That is a car that I will never talk down on, the same way that I would never talk down on the OG Demon. They're phenomenal cars. But they're phenomenal at the one thing. Well, the Demon's actually a really good street car. The Demon led into the Red Eyes, and a Red Eye with a 309 gear is one of the nicest, most chill, happiest cars you could ever imagine driving. Not super fast from a roll, but I mean, they come out of the hole like a monster, and they're great cars to drive. They're comfortable. They get good gas mileage. I mean, they're just really kind of, well, good is a relative term here, but they're just fun cars. And man, it just sucks that the 170 met the fate that it did through the dealerships. Because I'll put it to you like this. I would have really liked to be able to trade in my Hellcat on a Demon 170. And if I would have been able to get one at sticker, I would be campaigning the hell out of that car. Again, it just didn't work out that way, but I would have really just absolutely loved to have gotten my hands on one of those things. BB saying, which probably speaks to your point, the aim was not necessarily getting the car into the hands of the racers. Yeah, unfortunately. Daniel, so I know what ad you're talking about. I didn't see the whole thing. Like, I caught a chunk of it. I don't even know what I don't even know. I'm just, X got a 450, 415. Very nice. Congratulations. Very good. Breaks up saying I wear earplugs when I ride too. Better focus and don't get the fatigue from wind noise. That is the big part of it, man. The wind noise it just wears you out. It's like a sensory overload. Different helmets obviously have different amounts of seclusion, I guess you could say, for your ears. And with earplugs and a really good helmet, my Shoei, what is it, a 1200? Hang on, what is this thing? Oh, that's the Scorpion. Yeah, I think mine's the whatever it is, the 1200. Is that what it is? What are you anyway? 1400. The new one's a 1400. That one is really good. And then you couple it with the foam inserts or foam earplugs, and it's even better still. DM saying it's equally as bad as the hamsters driving the Kia. Man, I'm sorry. I haven't seen it. I know what is wrong with Dodge marketing? Seriously, guys, who quit, who moved, who went to another venue? Why does it suck so much now? Why is it so bad? Why are they so disconnected from their core audience? What is it? My gosh, man, it's so bad. And it's cringe. Oh my God. And I don't know who it's pandering to either, because it's not for the purist. I can promise you that. And it's not for the new person coming into it. It's like they're trying to revise history. It's no good. Stuart saying, I wear earplugs when riding, helps concentration. Yes, sir. Oh, Stuart, I find it odd that for the 24 Durango, you can still get a 5764 Hellcat. Yeah, I don't know. Are they moving into that? Are they leaning into that for the Durango and for the trucks? I don't know. Oh, Stuart saying, where's your plugs when welding? Gotcha. Yes, I can see how that would be a big help too. Kurt's asking if the Demon 170 was a Rush beta project. Sure looks like they threw the outgoing kitchen sink at it and ended up being another sink. Like the first one better. I don't know. I don't think that it was a rushed project. I think that they didn't think it all the way through. I don't think that they thought about how the failure of that car would really reflect on Dodge. I understand that they have upgraded parts in that thing, and that's great. I understand that it's got a lot of driver adjustability, which I'm really happy to see. Launch torque and all the rest of that stuff. Okay, lovely. You've got the ability to feed power in at launch. That's pretty neat. But here's the problem. The guys that have been going fast with the stuff we were doing, I mean, it was all foot brake. Oh, and by the way, when we set the Demon record, that was on a foot brake, by the way. But all of the cars that are fast don't have any of those electronic doodads. They don't have any of that. It's just all the power, and the modulation is your foot. I want you to think about that statement for just a second. Your launch control can't launch control, because if your launch control would launch control, then you wouldn't have preset torque limiting. Like you can say, I want a little bit here, and a little bit there, and a little bit here, and a little bit there. Don't need it like that. No other launch control works like that. You don't have driver configurable. It just works. It just controls the launch. There's no need to go in and try to put it into a certain mode that does this or that. You don't worry about it. And that's if you're using a launch control. But again, for the guys that were running the OG Demons or any of the Hellcats or anything like that, that's just boost and or nitrous, foot brake, nail it, fog it, or pedal it coming out of the hole, use the yoink method, and then hammer that at about a 2 second, at about the 2 second mark, depending on the gear that you're running and how much boost you're running. And yeah, that's how you put together an 8 second pass all day. There would be guys that would get bored of running 8 second numbers. That's it. And for the guys that would go rounds, they would just drain a water tank, an ice bath. That's all they would mess with. So, but plenty of cars running around with 1,100 horsepower that were street cars that didn't have any of those issues. Oh, Kurt, earplugs are a must on a bike. Good on you for the mention. Yes, sir. Oh, so let me show you the difference. Hang on a second. I mentioned the other phone. You guys, these, and they're all the same. They all have the same three. It looks like a little Christmas tree. And these, again, these are good if you just want to kill like ambient chatter in the background. I use these when I'm working a heavy bag or if I'm hitting the speed bag. I found that having earplugs in, especially if I'm, well, both really, for the speed bag, because if you're because it's not just a repetitive, it's not just when you're, the speed bag it's loud, but it's also on heavy bag. If you've got big gloves or small gloves and you're working hooks, it's pow, pow, and it's real loud. It's like a gunshot, right? So running these little guys are great in that scenario. But for the bike, I found that these are kind of not good enough, even with that 1400. So you go with the foamy kind, like these. Now, you don't just take these and stick them in your ears because they're not going to work like that. What you do is you roll it like you're rolling a roach. Look, we're all grown-ups. We know what we're talking about here. So you roll it, basically do a pinch roll like that and make it all kind of deformed. As you can see, you'll start to see it. It'll just kind of swell right back up. And as it does that, it'll conform to the inside of your ear. So you just roll it and then insert it into your ear, just kind of jam it in there, and you can hear it. It sounds like, and you can hear it swelling back up. And once it's in there, it's in there pretty good. Like you got to pop the thing out of there. And anyway, that's how you do it. That's a lot. Nobody's, if you've never been taught, then you would be forgiven if you just like were jamming the thing in your ear. But that's not how it works, guys. Again, I'll show you. The silicones, yeah, you just put these in your ear. You just stick them in your ear and then give them a light tug, and it'll do that to the little backside right there. And that'll help to seal it in your ear. But again, for the foamies, you just roll it, get it nice and tight, and then get it in your ear quick because they start to swell back up. Sometimes it takes you a couple of shots. There we go. And it'll just start to swell up. And again, you can hear it. It just sounds like the fizz. Like if you pour a soda into a glass, you'll hear it go as it swells back up. This one's pretty well swollen back up now. And so like you can like swing around. It's in there. It's in there good. And that's pretty good. It's a good seal in your ear. Anyway, these are fantastic. These will kill about 30 decibels. And that's really more what you're looking for. So I'll put it to you like this. If you're into guns, if you're like clay pigeons or shotguns, stuff like that, these guys would be perfectly fine. Rifles I would use, and pistols I would use the foamies. Really anything, pistol isn't supersonic, but anything supersonic, you want the foamies. Let's see. Stuart's asking, why didn't the SRT engineers just mimic the aftermarket Whipple Hellcat? Good question. Not really sure there. They did some things. So they being Dodge, did some things that on the surface look like a good thing with the red eye. They put a bigger supercharger on it, yes, but it has a higher initial drag. The rotor's way more, and so the rate that the engine can spool up is affected by that. But it's got good rods and good pistons, as you would call them from the aftermarket. But there's nothing inherently wrong with the hyper-eutectic pistons that are in the Hellcat. Plenty of high horsepower versions of that car were running around. So I can't say that there's anything better. I mean, I know that there is technically something better with the red eye short block, but it's got a slightly different cam. That's about it as far as I'm concerned, as far as being a power maker, because we just see too many Hellcats making a lot of power and not having any issues with the short block. But they, wanted to implement the sensed E85, and that is a big deal. I mean, that is something that every car should have. With the technology that we have today, guys, there is absolutely no excuse that I will accept as acceptable that would tell me why that all modern cars are not E85 compatible. It is stupid they're not, quite frankly. I cannot. E85 is so good, and for any boosted car, take the NA stuff out of the conversation then if you like, but any boosted car, turbo car should be E85 compatible. But why they didn't mimic the aftermarket Whipple Hellcat, because it's a different fuel system. That's about it, really. It's good saying, yep, always earplugs on the bike, always a good idea. Senator's asking, what's your opinion on the engine failures? Did they change the oiling for the engine? No, they did not. There's nothing wrong with the oiling as it sits from the factory, provided that it isn't overfilled. If the engine is, you would almost rather the engine be slightly underfilled than overfilled. More oil is horrible, because what ends up happening is the oil gets aerated. So too much oil in the crankcase, and the crank hits the oil. When the crank hits the oil, it'll aerate it, just like what you'd imagine that it would, right? It's why the car has a windage tray. It's a sump, oil pan, the whole bit. If you have too much oil in it, the oil becomes aerated. You foam up the oil, so to speak, and the pickup, it's just like if you've got a straw and you're trying to drink the foam that when you pour a soda into a glass. You're breathing in the stuff, but there's really no fluid there. That's what happens. If that's the case, that would be terrible. If people are coming from the factory with too much oil, typically here's how this works for me. All right. And this is for a lot of racers, what a lot of racers will do. My F-150, the Stormy, the Hellcat, every car, the SRT, every car that I've ever owned gets an oil change within the first 500 miles of me owning it. And I don't get on it at all in the first 500 miles. I just kind of drive the thing. I will allow whatever funk is going to happen inside that crankcase, but in 500 miles, the oil gets changed. And I mean, when I change my oil, guys, I am extremely anal about where the oil falls on the dipstick. I mean, like you would not believe. I am Yes, I'm the guy that will get underneath the truck or the car and pull the drain plug out and let just a little bit out and put it back up. I'm that guy. But if it makes sense. I mean, we at the time were in the business of setting records, and when you're in the business of setting records, well, look, Jim just beat my record by what, 200ths of a second or something like that. Hundredths of a second mean a lot, and so that's why it's just a symptom of being, ADHD, OCD, and every other acronym about wanting to, be the best you can at something. But when you do that, you are ensuring the right amount of oil is in the car. And you're keeping track of how much oil is going into the car. And if you see that it is falling onto the dipstick in a weird place, and you know that you've drained the sump and you know how much oil you're supposed to have on an oil change, and it falls into a weird place on the dipstick, you find out about it very quickly. So what happened with the Hellcats early on? All the Hellcats had to have new dipstick tubes because of that exact issue. Matter of fact, the older Hellcats were overfilled from the factory. So leads me to believe that it could be a problem here. But also the older Hellcats had all kinds of other issues that the new car probably won't. Ever notice why the radiator hose on the upper side has 2 clamps on it? Yeah, it does. Anyway, but that could be part of the reason. There's other reasons to go along with it, but I would say that the first thing is overfilled crankcases. Underfilled crankcases could have that. You could have an effect with underfilled crankcases. However, we've never seen anything like that in the aftermarket. And we've even known guys that have tried to cheat the sump down to see if they could pick up some power through windage. It never worked. But we've tried it and lost no oil pressure, and there was no issue whatsoever. So, Skids, yep, those are the ones. Yep. Gary saying, maybe I have a 15 Hellcat on corn and I have a ton of play in the diff. I can feel it when on and off the gas. I can turn the wheel at least a quarter turn back and forth, but Doc says it's the DSS drive shaft. What? Well, no, it won't be the drive shaft. I think all of them have a little bit of play, but you shouldn't have a quarter turn in it. Have you swapped fluid in it? And do you have a bunch of glitter in the fluid? Be the only thing I can think of. If there's too much slop like that, too much play, could be a prematurely wearing pinion gear. I've never seen it though. I have noticed that those diffs are a little bit loose though, typically from the factory, but you shouldn't have a quarter turn. I mean, that's a whole lot before you start getting movement. Is it noisy? I would think something like that would be really, really. DSS one piece, no glitter. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, there's the DSS won't affect it. In fact, the DSS, is your DSS have the CV joint front and back? Just curious. Or does it have a flange with a U joint up front? Let me see something here. Just asking Gary if he has which DSS shaft he has. Some are saying slurping oil. Yep. It does. Are you saying it has Gary, are you saying it has the CV joints front and back? I think that's what he's saying yes to. I can tell you this. I ran the Demon / Red Eye drive shaft, the heaviest out of the entire group on my car. And I helped to develop that drive shaft if it's the CV front and rear. And it had to have that they went through hell with drive shafts at one point. I got really good and really fast at swapping drive shafts. So I know it's not that drive shaft. So you're saying, can you elaborate more on the play in? Oh, sorry, that was Stuart's hanging out with Gary. Kurt, are Dodges that sensitive to a hairline above the top line on a dipstick, especially if the oil is measured going in? Not really. What I would do is I would always make sure that mine landed square in the middle, always in the middle. And I would just add, I would put 6 quarts in it and I would just add oil and got right in the middle. And it would take 20 minutes for me to do it. But yes, I was that picky about it because I did not want to have, I was drag racing that car every single weekend. And I did not ever want to find it in a position where I could get into windage. I wasn't really hitting that car hard enough to put it into windage. But you never know. And keep in mind, there is, yeah, I could say in the middle it is. Yep. Keep in mind, there is no real difference between 7 and 6.5 quarts on the dipstick. I mean, there is, but there isn't. What I did is I would just buy oil in the 5-quart jugs because it's cheaper that way. It's a lot cheaper that way. Get the oil in the 5-quart jugs, and I always had an extra single quart that I would use to measure out the oil. That way, you know, because I wouldn't drain the coolers or anything like that. It's not necessary. I was changing my oil so regular. I always do. I change the oil crazy regularly. So I wasn't worried about anything that would be in the coolers. But yeah, I would just, you know, fill up shake everything up, fill up the jug, and I would just pour it in, stop, and check. Go do something else, go check it again, pour in a little bit more, check out. I was just that's how we do the bikes too. I mean, I will look at the sight glass, pour in a little bit, go do something. Same thing. Yeah, I just stuck it in the middle and went from there. I'll put it to you like this. I don't fill it all the way up to the top ever. Kurt, thank you very much, man. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I never would fill it to the very top because I always felt like if I filled it to the very top, but then I still have stuff that's draining in from the head, that it would eventually, I don't know, it was kind of a weird OCD thing for me, is that I would fill it until I knew that it was right in the middle. And then I knew that I both had plenty in the sump and it was not going to be overfilled, even if I had oil that was stuck in some oil return maze somewhere that would eventually get back in there. It made me feel better about what I had done. I did the same thing with the F-150, the Ram, everything, which reminds me, I need to check. I had a free oil change. I need to check and see where it's sitting out here. I need to check and see where they put the oil level at. Things that make you, But thank you, Kurt. I appreciate that. William, thank you too, my friend. But with that, guys, we are coming up on an hour. So just to recap, guys, I don't know what's going on with Dodge marketing. It's making them look bad. And it's cringing a lot of Dodge loyalists. I can't tell you how frustrating that is. coming from somebody that has been bleeding Hemi orange for now far too long, was, that red V10, V10 red for the Vipers. I've been all over that for years and years. And it kills me where they're at now. I need Dodge to start doing something more exciting with the new Charger. Please show me something worth looking at. I am still looking for an excuse to throw E85 in the F-150 and go sniping after some of these new trucks. I might get my ass kicked, but you know me, guys, I don't mind being in the ring as long as I'm putting on a show. And in this case, I want to see what that F-150 does up against that standard output Hurricane 6. I think that would be a really good race. So there's that. But anyway, with that, guys, I want to thank y'all again. Kurt, William, thank you guys very much for the support. Very much appreciate it. And for all of y'all, guys, love each and every one of you. Would not do this without you. Remember, get out there and do something cool for somebody, because chances are they need it way more than you know. And with that, now that's a wrap. Y'all have a great one. Adios.